So the first thing I'm going to do is delete everything, and I'm going to create a box. And what I want to do is instantiate that box on the y-axis. So I'm going to do that using a line and using the points on the line where I can increase the number of points. So we can't really see the points here. So the best way to see them is to use a delete node, where selecting the object mode and not keeping everything, but keeping only the points, now I can see them. And I can see them even better if I set the color to black. So now you can see as I increase the size of the line or the number of points, I have many more appearing. And using a copy node, and if I make the box smaller, you can see that as I increase or decrease the number of points, this changes the number of boxes. So now let's change the size of the box. I'm going to reset it here and make it actually look like a shelf here, and I'm going to offset its center so that the pivot is going to be right here, like this. So now as I scale it from that pivot here. And so now as I increase the number of boxes, I also need to increase the length. Those two parameters need to be linked. So I can simply use an expression by saying copy param and passed as relative, and this adds the expression here. So now if I zoom out, I can see that as I decrease the number of points, the maximum height of the top box is going to change. But the space between each box is not the same, so I simply need to make sure that I add -1 here, so that the space between each box remains always the same. And now I also want to have the box on the side, so I'm going to duplicate this and use a merge node. So I'm going to reset that. Make sure this is reset as well. And now as I move it, make it thinner. Now what I want is basically to have that parameter be driven by the same length. So what I need to add, I'm simply going to make it slightly thinner here. I'm going to copy this length parameter and have that drive the scale on the y-axis. So now as I change the number of points, this is increasing in height as well, but there is a gap that remains. That gap is from that value, the thickness of those boxes. So I also need to use that parameter, copy param, and I'm going to paste it here just so I can not override what we have here, but I can simply add it here like this and reset this parameter. So now you can see that there is no gap even if I change the number of points. And I'm simply going to duplicate that to have the other side of the shelf. I'm going to put that here, but actually I can also use an expression, copy param, past relative with a minus. And now we have a complete shelf. So this is our basis for using our shelf in HTML. And so now how do we give a control to the visitors to change this parameter? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to export it. Shelf configurator, we just rename our scene. And we're going to look at what has been exported. So we have multiple files. We have 2 HTML files and some JavaScript as well. So first let's look at those files. So if I click on that window web server file, I can see what has been exported without having to start the server. So that's a quick way to make sure everything is correct if you're not sure how to start a server. But we're going to need to use the server to fully edit that one. Because what we want to edit is this one. It's going to be so much simpler to work with this file. So what I use basically is this command. So that npx start a server on the port 8085, and that makes sure that the files are never going to be cached. So I'm just going to start this, and I'm going to go to that page. And what I'm looking at basically is this HTML file. So now let's add an input or a slider that can allow us to change the number of shelves. So in order to do that, the first thing is, how do we change this value right here from the editor? And then we're going to see how to change it from the HTML that we've exported. So in order to do that, you need to have some basic understanding of what the API is. So if we open the developer tools, what we have here is we have access to the scene, which contains all the nodes that are in here. And using the context menu, you have some snippets that are going to help you. So let's use a snippet from the set command, which is what allows us to change the value of that parameter. So right now it's set it to 4, which is the current value, but I can set to 2, or I can set to 8. And that basically takes the scene, then takes the node geoline, which is this one, takes the parameter point count, and sets the value. So this is the basis of what we're going to use in the HTML export. But we also need to have that be driven by some HTML input. So we have more snippets that we can use. So we have HTML snippet and JavaScript snippet. So let's use the HTML snippet. So we're going to copy that. We're going to put that in here. And then we have the JavaScript snippet. And the JavaScript snippet, we're going to put that into that file that is being referenced, which is setup scene, which is that one, where there is this setup scene function, which we can add whatever we need to customize this scene. So I'm going to copy that, and as I reload, this will actually change the number of shelves.